The sun was coming up and there was zebras and giraffes and elephants, and my jaw just dropped.
Hello and welcome to the Travel the World podcast. I'm your host, Brad, and today we're talking all things South Africa. I've got two fine gentlemen here with me. To my left is John, our resident travel expert on South Africa, and Darren, who lived in South Africa for 3 years, I believe.
Yep, 3 years, that's correct.
And we're here to talk all things South Africa the traveler might like to know, and I think we should start with something that's at hand. The wine. The wine that we've been enjoying.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers. Firstly, is there a term for cheers in South African?
Cheers.
Cheers? Cheers.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the cuisine, the wine of South Africa, starting with this type variety that we're starting with here.
I think that in particular as Africa, the food and the wine is really phenomenal, and it's something that is not really thought about when you think about Africa. People so focus on wildlife in the game, which is obviously why people go to Africa.
Of course.
But in South Africa in particular, has got some incredible wineries. 45-minute drive from Cape Town is the wineland district with around about 4,400 different wineries.
Yep.
Stretching across about there's various different patches. Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, Kapal. This particular wine is from Stellenbosch. And we're drinking a pinotage, which is quite unique to the South African palate.
So,
very, very nice blend, a very soft blend, and a very easy wine to drink.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
As we have noticed pre-show.
Yeah, one of my favourites.
Yeah, this is delicious.
One bottle down, one to go.
Definitely instantly gone very high in my list because I'm a Pinot Noir sort of guy.
Oh, yeah?
This is kind of a smoother variety.
Yeah,
of that.
it's in between a Pinot Noir and probably Shiraz or Cab Shiraz. It's not as heavy, not as deep, but it's still quite light, so it's very easy to drink.
Because they've got a somewhat similar climate to us.
Yeah, very similar.
So it kind of fits in.
Particularly if you're living in the Melbourne area. I think Cape Town and Melbourne are very, very similar.
Yes, very similar, yeah, because it's cold.
In the weather.
Except it looks like they have kind of nicer beaches.
There's nice beaches, equally freezing water, is what we do here.
Especially.
Yeah, definitely. Beautiful, beautiful beaches. Yeah. And again, a lot of people don't associate beach and marine life with Africa as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And I think that climate and that temperate climate, cool climate, is great for the grape wine growing.
Yeah, and speaking of the wildlife, I know they've got like beaches there, but with like penguins on them. You can swim with them, and like I've swum with seals before in San Diego. And
yes,
it's like
actually,
probably a bit nicer.
I swam with seals. I don't know if you did it. I swam with seals in Cape Town, which was an amazing experience. So you go out into the water, and you're in a full wetsuit because it's quite a cold water for sure. And you swim with seals, and it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you think of.
Yep.
Like I don't think with many places, but
shark diving as well.
Yeah, I know that's very
popular.
Big.
That's very big as well. But yeah, that whole marine belt, from Cape Town in particular. The good thing about South Africa is that because it's on that big stretch of marine coast, it's got a lot of activity that attracts that urban dweller who wants to do running along the beach, or they want to do the beach activities itself, but also going into more natural wildlife, doing penguins, doing seals. There's lots of whale activity, shark activity as well. So shark diving is really, really popular as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's the sort of city that does have kind of everything. The more I've looked into it, like it's got the hikes right there. You got Table Mountain, obviously. It's one of the natural wonders of the world, and that's like at your doorstep.
Absolutely.
And then you've got all this outdoor beaches and diving. You've kind of got everything that a nature lover would like.
And I think going as a tourist is one experience, but I think being as a resident is something completely different as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, when you live there, you kind of don't do what's on your doorstep.
Of course.
You wait for people to visit you before you actually start doing the touristy things. So I took Mum up Table Mountain, which was amazing. The view of Cape Town.
It looks just spectacular.
And they were building the stadium at the time for the at the time. So that was really good to see the progression of that. Yeah. And then obviously you've got the national park on the top of the Table Mountain, which is amazing, which you can walk around. Beautiful.
Well, let's bring it back to things you might have done that are at your doorstep.
Yes, wine.
Well, it's what goes with wine. Sometimes, maybe not right now, but the food, the cuisine, like let's bring it back to that because I know I'm a big fan of barbecue all around the world.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big thing I do, and I've learnt that South Africa has its own style.
The braai.
Braai,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stunning.
The good thing about South Africa, in particular Cape Town, Johannesburg, or if you're going to the rural parts, that all have this common theme of the braai. And it's very similar to the Australian barbecue, pretty much, where, you go out and you barbecue meat. And it's a great thing because I love meat.
It's about community and bringing people together.
Absolutely.
It's like nothing too crazy.
Yeah, coming from the townships, there's a lot of townships around Cape Town, Johannesburg, and there's that sense of community, and that's brought into the cities as well. And so you find a lot of, like, here, barbecue's very, very popular here, but you don't go to a barbecue restaurant as such.
No.
Whereas over there, there are braais set up. You can go to a restaurant, which is a braai.
It's more similar to like the American style, or maybe the Brazilian style, or Korean, depending on those. I'm sure it sits somewhere in its own space. But our one is probably the most casual of
that's for
unless
sure.
Bunnings is considered a restaurant, which some people would say it is our finest restaurant.
But I think it's good because you get to try very different types of meat over there as well. So lots of game meat, kudu, and ostrich.
I tried my first ostrich steak there.
Yeah. It's great.
How was it?
It was good. It was very good.
So
what's it comparable?
It's gamey. If I think about it, probably like kangaroo steaks. Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. I don't know whether or not down as far south. I know up in the north you get more of the kudu and that kind of game, which is like a deer, I guess. So you have that kind of kudu burger and those other interesting things, which is really cool to try. But obviously they've got the normal beef and
of course
as well.
I imagine as well seafood's pretty prevalent there, especially along the coastline, because it's right there and there's a lot going on.
Yeah, for sure. And the good thing as well is that you've got the braai restaurants, but you also got everything from that not lower end, but that really cheap, affordable food option for you, right up to the high end luxury kind of gastronomic kind of experiences as well.
5-star restaurants.
And the top-hatted restaurants in South Africa, incredible. I was there a couple of months ago and I went to Marble Restaurant in Johannesburg. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful restaurant, very high-end, but what you're paying there is a tenth of the price what you pay here.
That is what I've heard.
A typical, gastronomic meal there, you can have something which is like a 5-course meal with paired wines for around about 150 Australian dollars. Whereas here, for that same quality and that same kind of notoriety, if you like, would be around about easily $500-600 per person.
And is it right there's no Michelin star restaurants? Is that a thing?
Yeah, a cool little fun fact is that South Africa don't sell Michelin tyres. So therefore they can't be graded as a Michelin restaurant.
Yeah, of course.
So now, there's a lot of top-hatted restaurants in South Africa, and in particular, a lot of people have concerns or what have you about Johannesburg itself. But Johannesburg is a real thriving hub for culinary cuisine. A lot of amazing restaurants, local chefs branching out and pushing boundaries and fusions of African food, Malay food, all these kind of things coming together to create a really interesting cuisine.
Well, their wine is spectacular, so if that's anything to start with.
Again, it is cheap.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I remember I was sitting on the balcony of the Belmont, what's it called? Nelson, the Grand Pink Lady of Cape Town. Beautiful old hotel sitting high up just underneath Table Mountain. It used to be an old historic hotel that would serve the railways back in the day, but it's a beautiful old, very, very high-end hotel. Sitting on the balcony ordering wine. So I was ordering, for my family, I said, we'll have one of these, we'll have one of these, and we'll have one of these. And she's looking at me going like, you realise you just ordered 6 bottles, don't you? Because the price is pretty much what we expect to pay for a glass here.
Yeah, Australia is not a cheap
So it's like, it was $12 for a bottle of wine in a 5-star luxury hotel. It was just amazing.
It sounds spectacular, to be honest.
Incredible. So the food, wine is so affordable. And against the rand, Australian dollars amazing too.
Aside to that, I guess, what's the sort of currency sort of exchange like? It seems it's pretty good.
It's great. It's about 12 to 1 at the moment. So usually you basically take off 0 if it's 1,000 rands, $100. But it's a little bit less now. So the dollar is really, really strong. And everything over there is pretty affordable as well. I mean, their cost of living locally is all relative. But for us going in, the cost of living there is much cheaper than what it is here. So buying things locally there is next to nothing.
Very nice, very nice. So we've heard a few of your sort of stories. Let's jump over to Darren. What do you got? You lived there for 3 years. Tell me about your sort of memorable experiences.
There are lots of good wines.
South Africa.
So no doubt you would have taken advantage.
Whether it can be the cuisine, somewhere you've been, just tell me something about South Africa.
I've lived in Johannesburg for 2 years, and going back to what John was saying about the restaurants and the food, lots of beautiful little suburb areas, lots of streets, outdoor seating, all that kind of stuff, really high-end quality. And people think of South Africa, but they don't think of, as John was saying, the restaurants, the 5-star hotels that are there, the fine dining, and basically I just pretty much spoiled myself, ate out a lot.
It's a good way to travel.
Absolutely. And there's a beautiful hotel called the West Cliff in Johannesburg.
Gorgeous.
Set up kind of like a mountain.
It's a Four Seasons there.
Yeah, it's a Four Seasons there. And it looks over Johannesburg Zoo. So from when you can sit outside having brunch by the pool, look out over to the zoo. Fun fact, when I was there having brunch with one of my friends that I was over there doing some work for, Rod Stewart was swimming in the pool.
Oh wow! Nice.
A little claim to fame there.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool. So that's the kind of caliber of hotels and restaurants that you can actually get over in South Africa.
And everything's so accessible as well, because staying at the West Cliff is a little bit out of the main drag, but Ubers and Ubers are so cheap over there and very safe to travel on. Everything's, tracked and monitored and what have you. So to get from, there to the downtown district where all the main restaurants are, and like a $5 ride. So
very nice.
Everything's very easy to get around. Yeah.
And they have the How train now, which goes from Johannesburg Airport.
Oh, okay.
Direct into Sandton.
Yeah. Right to Santa City, which is another good segue, because Santa City is full of shops and restaurants and designer shopping, if that's...
I think that...
more your style.
I think that, when you talk about Johannesburg, a lot of people, and a lot of Australians in particular, have got this dreaded fear about Johannesburg.
Yeah, I think it's just the unknown, because
it's the unknown.
I know I don't know too much about it, but that's why I'm enjoying
and I think
these sort of concepts.
A lot of the expats who come from South Africa have moved to Australia, and they've moved quite a few years ago, and they moved for a reason, something happened, whatever. They're telling their stories and perpetuating these stories and what have you, and it's putting the fear of God into people for Johannesburg. But Johannesburg, I think, is such a cool city. There's certain areas like Johannesburg downtown has been taken over by a lot of private investment equity groups. So different big city blocks being bought over by investment equity groups, and you can find these amazing microbreweries opening up, really cool chic restaurants, gin distilleries opening up throughout the city. There's a lot of local
Sold
artists.
me, I'm going tomorrow. Sorry.
A lot of local artists have gone through and painted this amazing, huge street wall arts have got amongst all the office buildings. So you can do a walking tour with a guide through Johannesburg downtown. I wouldn't do probably Johannesburg on your own. I would do it with a local guide. And you do the different districts, and you can do the different historical trails, because Johannesburg is enormously historic as well, with Nelson Mandela, where offices were, and there's also Gold Rush history there as well. So there's a lot of history in Johannesburg itself. So it's a really great city to go and get immersed in itself. But then I think the main downtown district now is Sandton City.
Yep.
Which is pretty much a new build city, which has been built up just outside of downtown Johannesburg, which has got a huge shopping centre, which is full of everything from Gucci to Prada now to H&M to whatever there. Amazing restaurants there. There's
Nelson Mandela Square.
Yeah, Nelson Mandela Square there as well. So it's very easy. It's very safe to walk around at night. It's patrolled 24/7 in that district. So it's a very safe area and a really cool area to stay in as well in downtown Johannesburg.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, to sort of finish the cuisine and culture sort of section of this, give me one thing.
Have a sip then.
give me one thing, food item and maybe place to visit that you think that people should try, check out.
Well, for Johannesburg, there's a Monte Casino. So it's like, I suppose it's like Crown Casino over here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Again, beautiful restaurants, nightlife, theatre. They're very big on the arts and culture over in South Africa. Lots of the big musicals and things will go over there.
Oh, very nice.
Which is great. And they always hire local talent, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Monte Casino, obviously, casino, go and do some gambling, drinking, and it's one of my places. I used to work there.
So that summed up your...
Yeah, I used to live across the road, so we were there a lot. And then, of course, my mum likes a flutter, so she was always on the roulette table. So it's definitely worth a visit there.
Very nice. And John, what's something people should try food-wise over there? Because we've kind of given them a fair few options. What's something that's kind of must-try, you think? Because I know there's the Malay, the Indian, the Indonesian influences.
There's a lot.
But do you have one dish that you think sort of sums up that you think people should try?
It's hard because it's kind of like saying what would you do for Australian cuisine, because Australian cuisine is a mix of everything. There's nothing that's I think the braai definitely. And going to a Boma restaurant where a Boma is like a big circular restaurant around a fire, where you have the braai and you have the traditional African dancing and the drums and things like that. That's a really cool experience to do something very different, very cultural. But I'd say, try and get out of your comfort zone, especially if you're in Cape Town. We'll talk about Johannesburg. But in Cape Town itself, everyone tends to stick around the V&A waterfront area, which is a really beautiful district to stay in, lots of restaurants. But try and get out of there, speak to the locals, speak to your hotel concierge, because they'll know what's new and up and coming within Cape Town. Get an Uber and just explore the city.
You can get the open top bus.
You can get open top bus.
All right, for each campsite.
Yeah.
One of the red buses that's in most major cities.
And also, if
they do work. They do.
They're great. And if you get an opportunity, go down to the Wineland District, because down there, there's some amazing, incredible wineries with incredible restaurants associated to them. But also within Cape Town itself is Constantia, another area. It's like a suburb of Cape Town, I suppose. So it's not as hard to get to. Constantia, there's a beautiful winery there, which I can't remember the name of the top of my head. It's a bit too much wine. But
we'll add it in post if we are.
But there's a selection of wineries within Constantia itself, and Constantia is like a 15-20 minute drive away from downtown Cape Town. So you can do some really great wine tasting without having to, if you don't want to, driving 45 minutes right now down to Franschhoek or Stellenbosch.
Sounds like you can kind of have a day of adventure if you want, whether it's on the land, sea, or gorging yourself, and then maybe a quick trip to a winery in the evening, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds like a pretty good day. It doesn't have to be crazy, but it sounds like you'll have a very full day.
Great day.
As well, you'll sleep pretty well.
Exactly. As well as mixing that in with a lot of, the museums that Cape Town and Johannesburg both have to offer. The Apartheid Museum, the Slave Museum.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to jump into next.
Oh, there we go. Segue.
Robin Island.
Why am I even here?
Yeah, Robin Island.
Robin Island, you get the... is it speedboat or...
It's a ferry.
The ferry across... Very informative.
Yeah. Okay. Because obviously, for those who don't know, I imagine most people do, but it's like they've had a volatile history in our lifetime. It's not like hundreds of years ago.
Correct.
It's like it ended in the 90s, 94, I believe, when it sort of officially ended. But apartheid has... It's got a deep, dark history of segregation. And obviously the museums there, they're not like... Here's ancient history. It's
relevant.
It's relevant.
And it's something that's happened in our lifetime. It's quite extraordinary. Though a really great museum in Johannesburg is the Apartheid Museum. And that one I particularly like, because when you get your ticket at the Apartheid Museum, you'll get an entrance ticket as either a white or a non-white. And that ticket will determine which entrance door you go through, and that's the experience that you'll have as that person. So as a non-white ticket, you'll go through and you'll experience life, what it was like, being segregated, being pushed aside and what have you, and the more privileged on the white side. And then you can reverse and do whatever you want to do. But it's a great experience to do.
Yeah,
it's very eye-opening.
Yeah, for sure.
There's certain places in the world where I'm not a huge history buff sometimes, where you walk through certain places, maybe it's in Germany, this sounds like it's that, because it's like, oh no, it's very obvious. There's no like...
And the fights and the struggles that there's people that had to try and free themselves is just extraordinary. You'll see that in Cape Town as well. There's a lot of museums down in the Cape Town district that focus on that, which is great. But also, that's a very sad part, but a very, important part of the history. But there's also amazing art galleries in Cape Town and Johannesburg as well. The new emerging young African artists. There's a gallery called in Cape Town. Ziak something. But basically there's an old grain silo that is in the middle of Cape Town. It's in the middle of the V&A waterfront, the main tourist district, and they basically took the grain silo and gutted the inside of it and turned it into a modern. It's like a what's that one in New York called? The modern museum art.
The Guggenheim.
Something like that, the African version.
Oh, right.
So basically, that's been gutted out. So you walk in, and it's an amazing floors, these amazing heights in the silo. You've got amazing African artists that's been exhibited in there. On top of it, it's an exclusive hotel as well. So there's definitely, the apartheid in history, but there's also the celebration of their emergence and celebration of different art and different things as they're moving forward.
Yeah, and one thing I saw in Cape Town, it's not a gallery or museum, but it's the houses. Some of them have been painted basically these colours, the super bright green, blues, pinks, as sort of once they were free, essentially. It was like a show of freedom because they weren't allowed to change colour during the evil times.
That's in the GoPack, the
Bocap. Yeah,
the ones. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And it's quite an easy walk from the V&A waterfront in Cape Town again. And as you said, is when it was basically a division that area was given to the Cape Malay people. And you can go into that district and it's got a really cool vibe. There's lots of different markets, street markets, spice stalls, things like that. Because they've got the Malayan culture, they rely on the spice trades and things like that. So you can do a lot of cooking schools in there as well, which is really great. So you go into someone's house and cook within their kitchen and they tell you about their story. And when I went there with my family, it was great because not only did we learn about, different cuisine and how they cook, but we learned about her story and about, for example, they adopted the name of their master, I guess. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
And so basically her surname was D'Souza. So she's kind of lost her lineage and lost her history. So she doesn't exactly know where she's come from or where her roots have come from. So it's quite an amazing story. But they create their own identity and their own sense of community. And now this is what they are. And this is, who they are.
Yeah, and their houses are essentially an icon symbol of that.
Yeah, and it's a really
looks pretty beautiful.
It's amazing to walk through.
Because you don't see many suburbs where it's like, this is just a rainbow of life.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
And there's so much pride in their houses and maintaining it. And it's a really great area to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Very proud nation.
Very proud people.
Very proud people, absolutely.
So switching from that sort of darker part, going into sort of more touristy things of like the scenic routes and the garden route, I believe it's called.
Yes, the garden route.
Tell us a little bit about that. There's sort of the sites you'll see.
The garden route's beautiful. It's so understated in the Australian market. It's very well known with the Europeans. Did you do it when you were
I didn't. Well, I drove from Cape Town to Johannesburg, but we didn't go that way. Just went the quickest.
You sure you live there?
I did. It's actually a 17-hour drive from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And so we stopped halfway, and then we were like, right, let's just get there because we were going for work. So,
well, the garden route, which I did it a couple of months ago. It's again from Cape Town up to pretty much Port Elizabeth, which is about a 300-kilometre drive. And it's an incredible drive because you're going through various different environments. So you're going from Cape Town City along the beautiful coastal roads with sheer cliff faces into amazing tropical rainforests, into desert surrounds, going through different little towns. So you're going into local producers. You're stopping along the way, eating local biltong, which is like the... which
jerky.
We should have had biltong, by the way.
Well, talking and eating is always...
Yeah, true. Especially biltong.
Yes, that is...
I would have had well done.
Because I might even have some in my desk.
Biltong, for those who don't know...
dried meat.
Yeah, it's like dried meat. It's like a
and it is better than jerky, I think.
Complete.
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Sorry to the Americans watching. I love you guys.
But you are driving along these little local towns that they create their own biltong. So you're eating local produce. It's kind of like going through little antique stores and gin distilleries and wineries and things like that. It's an incredible drive. It's really beautiful, and especially for people who love wildflowers and things like that. The wildflowers are incredible along that route too.
The nature, absolutely,
yeah. A lot of the locals go out there to do. It's like their weekend escape. So they'll do a lot of bush hiking, a lot of kayaking and that kind of activity. So it's really beautiful to do.
Kayaking.
That looks so experienced.
Well, speaking about getting out, I guess, into the nature of the country, I guess we'll dive into a little bit safaris because I think
that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
of course. Like, you got the big five and the animals.
I mean, Kruger National Park is one of the most popular and renowned worldwide.
Yeah.
You can see the big five there.
And those are, again, lion, elephant, rhino,
leopard.
Giraffe?
No,
leopard.
And
the wildebeest?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
But, I think so much is said about them. And it seems it's just like, you don't have to do too much about it because it's just, it's so prevalent in the country.
It is. I mean, you're going there for safari, and people who choose South Africa will not be disappointed. It is like Disney on steroids. When you go in, there's things bouncing in front of you all over the place. So whenever I've been, I've always seen the big five. I've never not seen it. Leopard, sometimes it can be not leopard, cheetah, which isn't part of the big five. Cheetah is very, very sketchy.
They're very fast, so they're probably you were just the eyes a bit slow.
But the thing with cheetah is that they like the big, wide open plains. Yeah. So more the savannas of East Africa where they can chase herds, whereas Kruger is very bushy and thick, so it's not their terrain. But amazing wildlife. But people are associating South Africa with Kruger, and that's it. But there's 21. There's 21 national parks.
That's a few. And if you're just going for 2 weeks, you're probably not hitting them all.
There's a lot of private game reserves as well. We drove up to Botswana, just on the edge of Botswana, Madikwe, private game reserve. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, Madikwe is a beautiful game reserve.
5-star luxury.
And to just interrupt, there's the two types. Can you sort of just, because you said the private one.
Yep.
So what are the two types?
Well, you've got the national park and you've got a private game reserve. And the main difference is that the national park is governed and ruled and managed by the government. So the national parks itself will manage that park. So it's got very stringent rules on what you can and can't do. There's tarred roads, so you must stick to. It opens at a certain time, it closes at a certain time. It's open to general public, so anyone can go in and out. Whereas a private game reserve is owned by the lodges which are in that space. So they have they're managing the land, so they can travel on it at any time of the day. They're not restricted by the time of the day. They can go off-road if they want to. So the main difference, I guess, is if you do see like a line way in the distance, in a national park, you must stick on the tar road and you can't go off it.
Get your binoculars out to me like, there's a line.
That's the all the way over
in the
there.
distance.
And I think it's waving its tail. Whereas in the private game reserve, you can go off-road on your four-wheel drive and park right next to it. And
so someone spots it and it's just like, there's a line, and they're just like, okay.
So you're literally this far away from a line.
Which
sounds great.
It does, but it's also freaky. Like it can be really quite scary, especially for the first timer.
Yeah, the first time for sure.
But such an experience,
it's
just
experience.
Very well worth doing.
And it's different parks as well for different things. I mean, Kruger National Park is a great park. Again, it's a public park, so you will get the day trippers coming in. So if you happen to be going through there on a weekend, it can be very busy. The locals coming through.
Of course.
Madikwe Game Park is a great one because it's private, but also it's malaria free as well.
That's good, I hear.
Great. It's great. It's great for families as well. You don't have to worry about malaria medication.
So would you recommend the private sort of one, assuming that's part of itineraries?
Or you have a great experience on either
one.
Either one, yeah. So we had... when we were to Kruger National Park, we had our Lion King moment. So we'd been, I think it was a 4:30.
Like there's a few moments. I'm like, is it good or bad?
We had, good, honestly good. I think it was an early morning. It was about a 4:30 a.m. Morning safari drive, and we were out. It was dark, and the sun was, eventually coming up. And we hadn't really seen a lot of animals.
Turns out they were sleeping.
Apparently. Anyway, the driver was like, "Let's go to the watering hole. Let's see what's happening over the watering hole." And
they woke up for their coffee.
We just came sort of around this winding road. The sun was coming up, and there was zebras and giraffes and elephants, and my jaw just dropped. I was like, "Look at them! It was like, and that was
amazing.
That sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So.
But there's also some parks down in the south as well. There's quite a lot of parks just off the garden route as well. So if you're doing the garden route, you can incorporate a couple of parks. Addo National Park is amazing for elephants. When I was in Addo National Park, I was sitting at my lodge for breakfast, and there would have been 80 elephants around the watering hole about 10 feet in front of me.
I have seen a few photos like that where it's like, I was just waking up and there's a few elephants over there.
And
they drink out of the swimming pool.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had that experience as well at Magic Round.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
And depending on your lodge as well, they're either fenced or unfenced. So if they're unfenced, then the animals are free to move through. We were staying at one lodge. I remember we had a dinner set up because, they tried to organise special dinners for you at the lodges, but we had to be moved from that location because the tree branch that was hanging over our table, a leopard was sitting on it.
Oh,
so we couldn't.
That sounds fun.
So but going back to your question, which is better? A lot of it is going to be budget driven because obviously when you're a private game reserve, it comes with a price tag and it's much more expensive. The national game parks are going to be a cheaper, more affordable option. So it's basically just going to be budget driven. If you at that budget, you will not be disappointed. You'll see amazing animals. If you can afford a little bit more, then go for this private.
Yeah, getting up close and personal, that sounds like a once in a lifetime sort of thing. Yeah. So maybe if you've got the budget and you're thinking about it, might be step over and do that.
When we're designing our tours in particular, we try and mix them up. So we try and do a mix of private and public. So then you get a bit of both, but you're not paying a lot for it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So do you have like one tip when you're going to safari, like just jump on it and you'll have a good time?
Jump on and have a good time.
Make sure to pack a camera.
Go with an open mind as well, because a lot of people have this thing in their head, I need to see this particular species of animal before I die. But you're not in a zoo.
Yeah.
It's wildlife, they just come and go. So whatever you see in front of you is an amazing experience.
Yeah.
It could be as small as a little bird, it could be an elephant, it could be whatever. But your naturalist guide is there to try and direct you and try to show you what you want to see, but it won't always happen. But there's other things to experience as well. There's incredible the plant life within Kruger National Park as well. They talk about how the indigenous used to live off the plants and how this particular plant heals this wound, or how this particular plant helps the giraffes when they have a sore throat, then they eat this particular plant because it helps them. These kind of things. So there's lots of different things you can learn. Don't be fixated purely, I want to see a leopard, otherwise my holiday's ruined.
Yeah. That sounds pretty amazing. So before we wrap up, I guess just what are a few tips, just if you're heading to South Africa or you're thinking, what would you recommend for people, whether it's packing or just like something what do you think before you head to South Africa, or while you're there even?
I think that South Africa is a very different safari experience as compared to other parts of Africa, because it has the capital city, it's got marine life, it's got the wine, it's got the cuisine, it's got the animals. It's not all about the animals. It's also got the history, it's got the culture, it's got the museums. So it's an all-encompassing kind of well-rounded holiday. So if you are traveling with a family, it is something that's going to hit everyone's attention. If you are going to go to other destinations, which is purely focused on safari and animals, then, it's going to be different holiday experience. So South Africa offers you that broad kind of experience and something which is going to appeal to, everyone.
Perfect. Darren, any final thoughts on South Africa?
Go with an appetite.
Go with an appetite, yeah, absolutely. Go with an appetite and enjoy the food.
Okay, well, I think that's enough to wrap up this podcast on South Africa. I've had a great time. I've enjoyed the wine far too much.
We have another one to enjoy.
Post-show celebration.
Yeah, correct.
It's the wrap party.
It's the wrap party. I'll appreciate those that have watched. If you've enjoyed the content today, please like and subscribe to our podcast, to our YouTube channel. We'll be back with more. If you are looking to maybe book a tour to South Africa, or you want to learn more, there'll be links in the description that you can click, and maybe you'll end up seeing some of these sites and animals that we've just talked about, because it sounds like an amazing space and place, and I kind of really want to go there now, so maybe someone else has. So thanks for watching. Keep dreaming, keep traveling, and we'll see you next time. Bye.